Happy New Year and welcome to a new season of Basically Speaking.
Happy New Year and namaste and hello to everyone.
So I think we are a bit late. We were hopefully planning to record a new episode a couple of weeks earlier, but now it's already February and I don't know when this episode will air.
So before that, now last time you stopped me.
Okay.
This time officially we should congratulate again for being a father of Nirvan and Benju as well.
Yeah.
As I jokingly said that you already got Nirvan.
Yeah.
Nirvana, right?
Yeah.
Moksha or something. Okay, so we can start with this good news.
Yes, so hopefully things will get better from now on and we'll have more time to record more episodes and discuss about more things. So what are we going to decide to talk today is a topic that is very close to us, a topic that we are interested to teach about, learn about and also research about. So it's about development, and we're going to talk more specifically about sustainable development. And since our podcast, our series is dedicated to philosophy, technology and society, we are also going to talk about these different things with a focus on sustainable development. Right?
Somewhere this philosophy and technology will, come from back door. But as you said, we call it ICT 4D, our research area. And we talk more about how technology can lead to development. But now there's a big twist, right? When we say development and then we say sustainable development or sustainability. So the question comes, so we can start with meditating, deep thinking about what do we mean by development.
So the purpose of our series is also talking more about basic concepts. So let's begin by exploring what is this concept about. Development. Let's start with development. What is this? So if we have to define development, so what's its definition?
Some of my friends said that Kathmandu is very developed now. We have 4 or 5 five-star hotels, clean roads sometimes. So I think we are developed. What do you think?
So I think we can still say there are so many things that would make me challenge your claim that Kathmandu is developed.
Okay.
So there are also many other things that would maybe not help us to kind of see Kathmandu as a developed city.
Come on, think about, you were not born, but when I was a kid, even I couldn't watch television. I didn't know about television until I went to, I was 9-10 years, right? And then making phone call was a really big challenge.
Okay.
Nowadays we have mobile phone in each and every hand, most of them. Very cheap. Still you are saying that it's not development?
I mean, it depends on what you what are the things that you see as developed and underdeveloped. I mean, you can also say that these are technological development, but still people it doesn't really mean that it would mean that is you are living in a developed society. I mean, one part is definitely you have access to good technology, you use technology in your day-to-day life, but is it all that is there?
I give you more examples, but we have a lot of private boarding schools. Now we have how many universities? Many universities. There was a time when we had just one university. Now we have maybe 7-8 universities.
I think more than that.
Emerging, new coming up also. Did I convince you that now we are really doing some kind of development?
I think we can say there's been some progress in terms of quality of education, people getting more educational degrees. But then why we say we live in a very developing world, or like
maybe this is something we are not, what do you call it? We are not giving credits.
Okay.
Okay, no, that's the question we always ask, right? Whenever we go to classroom, and then I ask the students same questions: what is development? And it is very difficult to actually define exactly what is development, right? But because we are in ICT 4D, and one point is that you should somehow define what do you mean by development. We cannot say everything is development, right?
Yeah.
If you put mobile phone in the hands, it's a development. If there's a toilet in the village, it's a development. If there are roads, it's a development. So it seems like we are not defining it very clearly. And that's one of the challenges with the academia, that, or maybe in the practice as well, if you don't have clear understanding, then we may be somehow not doing it properly, right?
And I also see like the challenge of, let's say, when we look at things like toilet or bridge or road, are we not also narrowing the definition of development in terms of, say, physical infrastructures or infrastructural development as development?
Yes, so let's go dig deeper into this one, right? Let's start with the philosophy.
Okay.
Aristotle says, okay, he's a Plato. Aristotle says that wealth is a means to happiness, but not in an itself.
Okay.
It's not the happiness in itself. What do you think this philosophical wisdom give the idea to us?
Yeah, I would agree that wealth is not everything. We then talk about also things that maybe wealth cannot buy, or
So one idea is, whenever we are talking about different infrastructures or technology and then other stuffs, resources, maybe we are focusing on means. Right? So we have to have those means actually to get the ends. And in this context again is development.
Yeah.
So the question again comes, what do you mean by development?
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So do you have any, definition you read during your bachelor's, master's, PhD? Come across some definition of development?
So I think the most common definition that I would associate when I started thinking about development was, say, the more material or like wealth related developments, like economic development is development when people have opportunities to generate more income, then that meant development.
Because we have only this GDP as one criteria.
Yeah, GDP.
Right?
So like for countries, so if your country has a very high GDP, then it's more developed.
So you can say, okay, one question. Let's say, if we want to know about development, because we have this GDP and then all this HDI index, different index to measure and then to evaluate, calculate. In your own research, you said there's some software or application called LISA, LISA, that can help you to check and make very objective list of something.
Yeah, measure progress or measure development.
And then you say, oh, if you got 80 out of 100, it's very developed. So that's one way of looking into. That's how most of the time, actually, development is actually measured. Right? More economic opportunities and all that, then you are more developed. But still, I think that doesn't cover, right? Even we find people are not happy. People are still saying that we don't have access to this and that. Basic needs, for example. Sometimes people say that, maybe development is when you fulfill the basic needs of the people. Right? Those who are not getting, 2 times food, very basic education and all that.
Or place to live.
So can we say that, okay, so development is provide some resources so they can fulfill their basic needs. Is that a sufficient development from your perspective? Or?
I would say a lot of people in Nepal or like in different parts of the world would have somehow fulfilled their basic needs, but would still consider themselves not not that satisfied or not that developed in that sense. Yeah.
It's because humans are greedy.
Yeah, that can be.
Anyway.
Yeah.
But if you look into this Maslow's, it's called law of hierarchy or need of hierarchy. Sorry, needs of hierarchy.
Pyramids of hierarchy or no, hierarchy of needs.
Hierarchy of needs.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
The pyramid is a.
Yeah, it's
pyramid. Pyramid is a different Prahalad's concept. Right? Yeah. So he said that first we fulfill our basic needs, and then once you fulfill your basic needs, go to your maybe emotional and mental, cognitive, and then you go to the self-actualization. So the idea is that there is a hierarchy.
Yeah.
So just fulfilling basic needs will not make you happy if we take happiness as a development, right? So this is one way of looking into, maybe this hierarchy. If you fulfill basic needs and then other needs and other needs, then you get development. Is it a kind of, do you think, is it this kind of sequential, hierarchical thing, development, or maybe there's something else?
I think, I would say it depends upon, like, you might have very structured needs, so you might have a very immediate need of eating, and then have a place to live, place to work, right? But at the same time, and then say after generating an income, that there also needs to be what would you then use that wealth towards, right? And I'm not only just saying to accumulate more wealth, but also, let's say, am I having a good work and life balance, right? Or whether or not when I'm sick, I have money, but whether or not I will be able to get good health care.
Yeah. You know, I was so surprised when I first went to US. Because when I was in Nepal or India, so my thinking was the Hollywood style of, maybe some kind of cities, all rich people and no poverty, no beggar and all that. But I got surprised when I see like homeless people, right? A lot of inequalities.
Yeah.
Then I realized maybe it's not just about fulfilling basic needs or having, resources. This is something more than that, development. So it's then when we started ICT4D, you started your PhD, and then I started my PhD. This is where I started to dig deeper. I said, that was my understanding so far, right? Maybe if you have a good technology, if you have money, you have a car, house, then it's a development. But then later I realized maybe it's not development. So I started to look into different way of looking into, and then I come across, and I will say it's one of the definition. I will not say maybe it's the definition, but Amartya Sen, right? You have Amartya Sen, and what he says is development means it's a freedom of choice.
Freedom of choice,
right? So that each and every individual can live a life with the value, right? And there should be reason to value. So it's a very small definition, but there are so many things. Like freedom of choice means, if we look from a development perspective, so the government or any organizations should create such a political, socio-political, cultural environment, you can say, the conditions, where each and everyone has the freedom of choice to educations, to healthcare, to income-generating activities, right? That's what he is saying. So freedom of choice, the freedom is a means as well as the ends of the development, right? And I stick with that. But as I said, this is not the definition, because you have some different definition of development.
No, I can agree with it. And when we put development in that lens, let's say, for example, if you are making a decent earning, but then you don't have a freedom to say, voice your opinion when you are upset at work, right? Or like say you don't have a freedom to take vacations or have holidays. So I think that is something I think is much more of a more deeper understanding of development than just saying that enhancing people's ability to earn more. So I can agree with that. But then how is it that there's also, you touched upon the issue of values.
Yes.
So people are choosing, or people have the freedom to choose, also, and to do things that they value, right? So then the question is then, how do we then say? So is it conscious that people are aware of things that they value, or?
That's a good question, actually, because I was listening to Yuval Harari, and he was talking about nowadays the challenges with the having what do you call it? The overloaded choice.
So you have so many choices.
Yeah, you have so many choices, and then you are overloaded, and you don't know what is right or wrong. Right? That's another aspect of development as well. But I'm talking about when I was doing my research, and then if you go to the mountain regions, and the communities where they don't have any electricity, they don't have any proper education systems, lack of teachers and doctors. So for them, even if they have resources or finance or fund, if they cannot get good education, access to the education, the freedom of choice for the educations, for the income generating activities in their own places, right? Then Amartya Sen will say, no, it's not. Because there's a difference between saying, I want to fast, right? Because that is my choice. And saying that I'm starving. So starvation is not a choice.
Yeah.
So his idea is, okay, we need to provide such conditions, or we have to organize in such a way that all these arrangements should be to somehow enhance, he call it capabilities, the freedom of choice, enhance the capabilities of each and every individual. The reason I'm again and again saying, but there should be region to value. It's not like my value is that I want to capture everything, whatever resources there in the village, and I want to be the best. That's not because there's no ethical reason. I cannot reason ethically about capturing others, right? So this ethical view is always there when you are talking about development from freedom of choice, from Amartya Sen's perspective.
Okay. So then, how is it then? It then becomes, doesn't it become like development is a very individualistic, in the sense that every individual then would define what development means to that person. But when we talk about development, we not only talk about individuals but also about societies. So how is that relation then?
Yeah, and that was exactly my argument in my PhD. You touched a very nice actual thing, because in such communities is very difficult. So measuring is very difficult. We cannot measure each and every individuals, because at the same time, if you see, every individual has he call it human diversity, right? You cannot judge our choices. We cannot have common choices, even though we are the same individuals, right? You may have very different needs and values. I may have very different needs and values, even though we have same resources, right? So that's his point. But of course, when you implement, is very challenging, and when you want to measure, it's challenging. That's why we said we actually argued that we need to look into the collective level, right? We cannot go into individuals, but let's say collectively, are they able to access to the education? How can this technology can facilitate? Right? Collectively, are they able to enjoy the healthcare facilities? Right? So our argument is, if we look collectively, and there's a possibility that individual will also get their values. However, so again, it's a challenge that we cannot look at each and every individuals. That's a practical challenge.
Okay. So far we've touched upon, so we tried to understand the concept of development, and we said that it can be narrowly defined and it can be broadly defined, and it has been dominantly defined as a very resource-based concept, like having more wealth, or having more infrastructure, having more resources as a sign of development. But then we discussed that it's just a means to an end, not an end in itself. And we talked about understanding development instead as choices and freedoms of choices. and we decided what choices people have to act upon those resources, then determines whether or not the society or community is developed or not, right? So now then, how do we move on from this definition of development to something called sustainable development,
very
right?
Nice. But the sustainable development is very paradoxical.
So you need to develop, but at the same time be static.
Sustainable is somehow stable,
Yeah. and
development is always change, dynamic process.
So paradoxical.
So
how can that happen?
Nowadays, I usually use sustainability
to
make it more encompassing and looking at a dynamic process, right? It's a very good question, because sometimes in ICT 4D we end our research out here. We look at the present. This is it. If people are getting access, they are the main receiver of the benefits of resources, right? But this started to create challenge, environmental challenge to many other things, right? This is where we need to think broader.
Okay.
Maybe that might be the reason this Millennium Development Goal changed to Sustainable Development Goal, right? MDG to SDG. So sustainability is because so far we talk about freedom of choice to human, and they can live a life with their value. If you see, it's a very anthropocentric. So anthropocentric is human-centered.
Okay. So
we are very centered towards human.
So when we're talking, mostly so far we've talked about development, but in the sense we're talking about human development.
Human development, and that's the right term actually. Human development. The capability is more human development, right? And then we found now there's some balance coming in the planet. Right? There's a climate change. There's many insects and animals are extinguished. I mean, no species left. So sustainability goes still look into life, right? Because if there's no life, why do we need to think about sustainability?
Exactly.
We cannot say, all humans should die on plant and animal, they should survive. We cannot think that from that perspective, right? But at the same time, we cannot say human life is very important and then the others are secondary. So sustainability, I take especially from this is the earnestness, deep ecology, or it's a very Eastern perspective. So this is equality of life.
Okay.
So as Hans Jonas, a philosopher from Germany, who said that the first premises of sustainability should be existence of life. If we don't think about the existence of life, then why do we need to think about sustainability? Right? But life here is broader, life of all living thing.
Not just human life.
No, and how they live among the other non-living thing. That's the whole idea of sustainability. So we need to go beyond human-centered approach to you can say ecological or planet level or the cosmic level development.
So it's interesting because when we talked about this freedoms approach, you mentioned how Amartya Sen sees this as like the freedoms of choices and the choices, people acting upon these choices, based on things that they value, and we also talked about the ethical values, not just value for the sake of values. It can be interpreted differently, but something that is with good intentions, right? But then who would? It is actually it is straightforward when we talk about humans and organizations or groups. They can really say it might be difficult to articulate what is a common value, but in a sense humans can voice and discourse. But how do we then think about the values of planet or like in general non-human life?
There's a very interesting term for them. They call moral patient.
Okay.
So we are moral master. Okay. We are actually, because we are more intelligent than other beings, living beings. So it is our responsibility. That's called the ethic of responsibility.
Okay.
Right? So it's our responsibility to take care of how we can actually live in cooperation with others, right? Because there's some theory called Gaia theory. Gaia is the earth or something, right? So the idea is it's a very philosophical. The planet has its own life, and it knows how to sustain itself.
Yeah.
It doesn't need any human intervention. What we are doing is actually disrupting the natural way of life.
Yeah. Okay.
And then this human-created disaster is irreversible. That's the dangerous. Okay. So here we are just interrupting. We don't have any power to make sustainable thing, right?
Yeah.
We can only cope with nature.
Okay.
So that's the basic idea of sustainability. But maybe we are talking about the thinking right now we have. It didn't come this way, right?
So it's what sustainability is doing is is not problematizing the common say human development model, but adding a new layer. Would you say, or it's actually kind of it's radically different than just adding a layer? It's not just an instrumental change.
I will not say it's radical change. If we look back to our ancestors, right, how they used to live, go back to the Indian philosophy, and then if you look at the 4,000 or 5,000 years ago, their way of life was very living together with the nature, right? Being with everyone. It was not like nature is different than us, right? It was more like being with nature, okay? Living in harmony with the nature, because we are interconnected, we are relational. So if we destroy the nature, that will also be harmful to us.
Yeah.
So here you see it's a very mutual way of understanding the development. It's not like, okay, we starve and then make nature happy.
Okay.
No, because if we make nature flourish, human will also flourish. That's the idea.
Yeah.
But how this distorted this idea gradually. I don't want to blame the Western philosophy, but somehow if you read the system view of life from Seeds of Capra, his argument is, especially the modern philosophy, when they started to think like mind and other things are different, matters are different,
Okay,
right?
yeah.
Mind means human are more superior, we are very intelligent. All other things are like a machine, resources that you can use it for your purpose, right? And this is how the science came, very objective, right? And the technology also used in that way. Okay, everything you can exploit that for your benefit.
Your
right?
consumption, yeah.
This is the idea came, which is very deterministic, very reductionist, or you can rationalist, and sometimes you call it the machine way of looking into the world. So it's a very machine worldview, right? Everything is machine. Even human, those who doesn't have capabilities or the resources, they are like machine, part of the machine, right? So this is how it progressed. And then we were like, not like that. We were very sustainable. And then slowly, with the introduction of science and technology, we started to forget our root.
Yeah.
Right? So, and slowly when we started to have this climate change and all that stuff, then we started to say, no, maybe we have to think broader.
Yeah.
Right? We need to have system thinking. It's not just, for example, what do you think if this technological view, okay, bring this technology and it will lead to development or sustainability?
I think it, because we know, because we come from the same research field, and it's a very, I would say, very simplistic way to expect that technology will bring change in itself. I would say it is one of the elements, but it's not the only element in the process, because there are so many other things. Because a lot of times people's needs, or also contextual problems, and different groups, they have their own interests.
You were telling me about this Nepal party. Yes,
right? Because I wanted to come to that topic, because now we're talking about the relation between nature and human development. So I was just interested in talking about this recent controversy, I would say, or like it's a very important, it's ongoing, and it's very important issue.
Maybe you can share.
So of this of this development of a cable car service in the Pathivara temple, which is a very religious place and a very it gets a lot of religious tourists in Nepal.
Is it in the where is this?
It's in the eastern part of Nepal.
It's
in the Taplejung district. It's a very hilly district, and you have to actually. I've been there a couple of years ago.
So it's a touristic place.
It's a religious touristic place, and the beauty about that journey is that you need to trek from the base to the temple. Temple is at the very height, and then it'll take you 2 to 3 hours depending on your capacity to walk, so to get to the top of the hill where the temple is located. But now a big company in Nepal, the IME group, wants to build a cable car that would only take you 10 minutes to reach that temple from the base.
It's an interesting case, if we think from development perspective.
Okay,
we want to bring technology, right? Technology doesn't mean AI and all that. We want to bring cable car as a technology.
And then also like development, as I said, like you are shortening the distance from 2 hours walk to like say 10 minutes walk. So you're making things efficient.
Time.
But the problem here is that it's a very sensitive issue. Why? Because a lot of local people are against the development of cable car, and others are in favor of it.
But it's interesting, right? Because if we put this cable car, it will draw many tourists.
Yeah, just like in Managamana.
There can be hotels, and then many people will get employment. But why the hell this controversy?
Yeah, also when you have this cable car, and a lot of people would come to visit more tourist attraction, because then the hike becomes easy. Like there won't be any hike there, so they'll just cable car. But I think lot to do with what you mentioned, destruction of nature when you're doing this development, and a lot of the local group, and also I think particularly there are some one particular group is not happy that it might disrupt the natural order, or like say more cultural or spiritual way of life, because I think I heard one of the activist who's against the development of cable cars. So he was kind of speaking how it might create disturbance in the sense of more in a very spiritual nature, that it would disrupt the spirits, or like the Holy Spirits, and that might bring in the sense, like more from a spiritual point of view, it might bring more devastation. So more got to do with the cultural beliefs. So
that's what I was thinking from this, when we have a deterministic technology deterministic thinking, or we are just looking from economic perspective, right? And science and technology is very objective. They don't care much about your subjective feeling and whatever this identity and culture.
Exactly.
So this is where I wanted to bring this system thinking. So system thinking is more be careful about not just the technological intervention, but also about the cultural sensitivity and the spiritual and the religious sensitivity. So we don't know what will happen to this this project, right?
Because I think the project that is being justified here is in terms of how much tourists it will economic or how much jobs it will create, right, and how much it is beneficial to market expansion of that region, and then create more entrepreneurial activities. But then why would locals because would obstruct development in that sense?
So I think this is a very good, very small case. We are not saying that we have a solution they should actually do or not do, because it has both aspects. One is economic aspects, right? And other infrastructure development aspects. Because I heard that you cut less trees when you put cable car instead of
building a road,
building roads, right? Second thing is, what they are saying is they will actually prioritize local peoples for the employment. At the same time, the opposition says that if they are more money oriented, if they are really looking for money, why don't they invest in the actual local agriculture products they have?
Yeah.
Why don't they create markets for them?
Yeah.
Why do they need to put this cable car?
Yeah.
And again, as I said, but we need to have this systemic thinking. We need to have discourse, right? Just putting one way of looking into development will be a disaster for the project. I mean, it's not. We are looking for win-win situation, but here it's a bit difficult situation, right?
But what about this? Very, like I would say, these big companies are guided by very much capitalist values, where like they want to, as you mentioned, like they could have easily invested in the agricultural production of that region, right? But with cable car, they see scale, so scale of investment and then scale of return, right? So is it then, when we talk about sustainable development, are we then saying that it's it can only happen within this growth mentality, a very capitalist mentality, but at the same time we are also protecting the nature? So I see a bit of contradiction, challenge.
You know, there are millions of research papers on sustainability, sustainable development goal, even in ICT for the IS. And sometimes I feel like, do we really know what sustainability is? Right? For example, do we really apply this to our day-to-day life as well? That's what Hans Jonas, philosopher, says, that until and you, unless you bring this in your ontology, your worldview, this ethics for the future, the responsibility, it should be integrated in your habit as well. It's not just reading paper, writing paper, talking about this is not going to bring sustainability, right? So in this case, you see, if they would have looked into more other way of actually, because tourists, they also like trackings, right?
Yeah, hiking. I mean,
and then if you can find a market using online technologies for their agriculture products, you see, that might have been more coping with the nature, but at the same time looking at the economic benefits, right?
Yeah, and what I've also observed is like a lot of these trekking routes over the time, in the name of modernizing these routes, a lot of money has put into build these concrete structures for walking, which is also, I think it's also maybe one way of putting it would be to destructing more, like say more traditional routes, where like you could easily use local materials and more natural and like less that is less harmful to the existing system.
And that's with the mindset. As I said, sustainability is not only about talking and then discussing, writing. It's about mindset, right?
Yeah.
So if I'm an investor, even though I say, it's more about sustainability, more about the economic activity, but it's a very capitalist mindset. You see. I still want to get more through less investment and more profit, right? That's my. I don't give a bigger this ecological thinking, like how this will affect the ecology and all that. I can justify by saying that, it's very looking for these people and that people, but this capitalist mindset is there. And when you have this kind of mindset and then you go with that, and then it doesn't connect with the local community. That's why they get this resistance. Right?
Exactly.
I think that might be one reason. The fundamental problem is mindset, and then we want to impose our mindset, and then we feel like they are illiterate, uneducated. We are the best because we know everything, and that somewhere create this imbalance. And that's the very dangerous capitalist approach. You can say that.
But do you see this when this capitalist mechanism to solve development issues, right? Because I can see that the region is, I mean, it is known for the temple, but also I can see that there is a lot of challenges in terms of, there are lack of resources, and it's a very remote place, right? Do you think capitalist mechanisms? And when I'm talking about capitalist mechanism, I'm much more thinking about these development at scale that, let's say, this group, this company is trying to impose. Because cable car is a big investment and scale, right? So do these big scale capitalist model have the answer to more pressing needs or more sustainable development? Do you think, or let me put it in a different way, can sustainable development or sustainability happen within this capitalist model? Because a lot of people are saying it can happen, it can solve things. Let's say circular economy in a way is also is a way of tackling environmental problems within the capitalist model, where people are reusing this product and reusing at a scale, right? So do you because we are in a way criticizing capitalism, but do you think it can work, or let's say sustainable development can take place within this old traditional model of capitalism?
Not the traditional way, because this is again about the philosophical root, where does it origin, right? Where does this idea come from? What is the essence of actually capitalism? If you go back, capitalism will never see that it is for the benefit of the society, right? Everyone should be equal. We should not judge equally beside their merit based. We should not go
like the invisible hand. So everybody, if they work in their self-interest, then broadly it will benefit everyone, right?
So maybe there's some problem with the root. That's why we need some better understanding, right? So if you bring this capitalism model and then you think about this development from freedom of choice and all that, equality, justice, somewhere it doesn't fit together. That's maybe if they but nowadays the capitalism is, of course, it's not a pure like traditional. They are somehow bringing this socialism perspective as well, right? So Norway is a good example. I mean, if you see, there's a very good combination. And we cannot, one irony is we cannot stay away from capitalism. You see the China, they're more capitalist if you see, right? They're regime. So I would say in that two ways. So your government model and your market model should be different, right? You cannot have similar approach for both. Maybe that might work. I don't know, maybe.
Yeah.
But I am also not, I cannot say that maybe the capitalist way of development is completely wrong. And if we go to communism or other, because again it's depend with the intention and the mindset, right? You can give any name, any label. But I can say that if we look the actual origin of the term capitalism, then it doesn't have those essence or element that we are talking about.
Exactly.
That's a bit problematic.
So let's say for example, staying within the capitalist approach, or let's say capitalist economics approach, where let's say in Pathibara they are able to measure the environmental cost in terms of what is the cost, environmental cost of building this cable car project. And they kind of translate it into a number of trees, and they we'll build the cable car, but as a so in return to the environmental cost, we will plant this many trees in somewhere else. Does that solve a problem? That can be a approach within the capitalism, where like you are continuing to build the cable car, but then you are also saying we'll also save environment, so we'll plant say 20,000 trees in some place else in Nepal. Will that solve the problem?
No, because this sustainability is a universal approach, right? And one misunderstanding right now is this. We said mostly people think that it's the poor country that creates problem. But if you look carefully into the history, right, it's not those poor countries, right? It's the rich countries who actually exploited them, and then actually they have make the country rich. Right now, if you look Nepal, I don't think Nepal has so many forests. I don't think we are emitting carbon dioxide and all that. We cannot just by Kathmandu, right? There are other places. It's really a good environment and all that. But it's a very narrow thinking, reductionist thinking. So if I say I heard about this carbon
emission.
No, there's some quota.
Right? Carbon offsetting.
Offsetting or whatever you can. If you are not using too much, I can buy some quota or something like that. So you see, this is not a sustainable thinking.
Yeah.
It's still a capitalist approach.
Yeah.
It's a camouflage.
Yeah.
You have a capitalist in the what do you call it? The के भन्छ शिपको उसमा चाहिँ बाघ भने जस्तै के.
Oh yeah. You can say a capitalist wearing the environmentalist skin.
Skin, something like that.
Okay. Yeah, different.
Yeah. So that's the challenge, and so
I think we should then be aware of, like, in case we don't know how this controversy would conclude, right? But then we can come to this case in our future episodes as well. But now I think what we can say is that there can be strategies that look very environment friendly, but are not actually. They are actually capitalist in their intent and values.
Scheme, you can say. So if we look from the beginning, as we said that human development important. We need freedom of choice. Of course, that's there. But
what about the freedom of choice of this company who wants to build? So we are not.
No, but then the question comes: is there a value to reason?
Yeah.
So if you look from ethical perspective, is it sustainability from ecological sustainability perspective?
Yeah.
Do we have enough reason to say that whatever I'm doing is a very globally, the coherent and harmony with the nature? Maybe not. So
because you get this this dissatisfaction from a lot of entrepreneurs who want to do a lot of things in Nepal, and they say like they get a lot of backlash from communities. For example, we want to generate power, and we want to build dams, and we want to invest in hydropowers, but it's the locals who are always obstructing us, right? These kind of rhetorics.
It's a challenge, but at the same time, you have seen that if the technological advancement and the capital approach might have bring good thing, then we don't see that. We don't socially. Individually, people are making more anxiety, socially more distractions, right? Environmentally, more problems, more challenges. So it's very evident that maybe this approach is not working. Right? So we don't have to say that anything, and this is very evidence-based.
So I think we started off with this definition of development, and then we ended up talking about controversies a lot, and I think this deserves another episode. But I think I like how we were successful in setting the stage, talking about different ways of thinking about development, and then we moved on to how we can then think about sustainable development, and then we also touched upon a real world case and controversy in Nepal about building cable car in a religious religious place. So we can come back to these issues in our future episode. But what do you think? What is your takeaway from this episode?
I think because, as I said, it's about mindset, right? It's changing this machine view, going to system from system to more ecological thinking. So, as Friso Capra, I like his ideas of system view of life, because he's saying the same thing. We need to change the paradigm. It's a paradigm shift, the way of thinking, the way of doing our research, technological progress has something fundamentally wrong. So we need to have more and more discourses, coming up with new ideas, new way of actually living in harmony with the nature. Maybe Eastern philosophy, Western philosophy, go back to the root and then bring that in our day-to-day practices. That's what he's saying, and we can go in detail in the next episode.
And I know for a fact that he's been preparing a lot in terms of discussing with us about Eastern philosophy, Hindu philosophy, and also non-Western philosophies. And then I think we can use intellectual resources from those school of thoughts and discuss about sustainable development. I think that would be a good, that is actually a good bridge way for the upcoming episode. We can.
I will never, because I started from reading Western philosophy, and it gave a very nice perspective about how the world order, what is our position in the world, about the technology and all that stuff that's happening right now, right? And Eastern is more about going internal, going internal introspection and looking yourself from more spiritual perspective, interconnectedness with the nature. But if you see, both can very nicely complement, because then you get the idea of external and then internal, and how can we bring it into practice so that we will have more sustainable and more coherent, interconnected, and harmony with the nature and everything.
Yeah, I like that idea where we are not isolating these school of thought, but expanding the horizons, right?
My whole approach is always looking into harmony, how we can bring these together and complement. And there's a lot of complementarity instead of fighting useless language. What do you call it? Sometimes language gymnastics, mental gymnastics. So we can look into practical how we can use it in an applied way.
You're putting these things more politely, but But on that note, I think it's time to sign off. Hopefully, you enjoyed this first episode from our, I would say, second season.
First, chronologically 6 episodes.
And then because we're coming out of hibernation, so I think this was, as a way, was a warm-up episode for us.
It was a bit hectic because you were enjoying fatherhood and
I
was
enjoying
preparing for courses and some deadlines. But now we will be regular.
Yeah, exactly. So you might feel a bit. This topic was a bit different because we were talking in very different areas, but hopefully it was enjoyable to you, and I think we'd love to hear from you what you think about development and sustainable development, and your ideas, your worldviews. So I think that we can further incorporate in our upcoming episodes. That would be nice.
So keep on watching, subscribing and liking, so that we can be more sustainable.
Exactly.
In our podcast as well.
Exactly.
Okay.
So so keep watching us and keep supporting us.
Thank you very much. Namaste. Bye bye.